The unexpected alliance. Captain Leah Chen stood at rigid attention, her eyes fixed on the towering alien before her. The creature, if you could call it that, was easily 3 meters tall, with iridescent scales that shimmered under the harsh lights of the United Earth Force's primary spaceport. Its 4 arms ended in delicate, multi-jointed fingers, and its large, compound eyes seemed to take in everything at once. Leah's jaw clenched as she fought to keep her expression neutral. She'd trained for years for first contact scenarios, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of standing face to face with a being from another world, especially not one that expected her to bow. "Captain Chen," came the telepathic voice of the alien, a Zarkai, as they called themselves. "We have greeted you in the manner of your people. Will you not return the courtesy?" Leah's fingers twitched at her sides. Behind her, she could practically feel the tension radiating from Admiral Kowalski and the rest of the UEF delegation. This meeting was supposed to be a formality, the final step in cementing an alliance that could change the course of human history. And here she was, throwing a wrench in the works because she couldn't bring herself to bow to an alien. "With all due respect," Leah said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, "I serve humanity. I don't bow to anyone, not even potential allies." A ripple seemed to pass through the assembled Zarkai. Their scales shifted colors, creating a dazzling display that Leah's eyes struggled to follow. The lead Zarkai, their equivalent of a general, she'd been told, tilted its head in a way that might have been curiosity. "Interesting," the alien mused, its mental voice carrying a tone that Leah couldn't quite decipher. "Your superiors informed us that you were chosen for this honor because of your adaptability and open-mindedness. Perhaps they were mistaken." Leah felt a bead of sweat trickle down her spine. She was acutely aware of the consequences her actions could have. This alliance could mean the difference between humanity remaining trapped in its own solar system and reaching out to the stars. But something deep inside her rebelled at the thought of bowing to these creatures, no matter how advanced they might be. "My mind is open," Lee replied, meeting the alien's gaze steadily, "but my spine is steel. Humanity doesn't need to subjugate itself to find friends among the stars." For a long moment, silence reigned in the cavernous spaceport. Leah could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then, to her surprise, the Zarkai general's scales rippled with a new pattern, one that seemed almost amused. "Very well, Captain Chen," the alien said. "You have made your position clear. Perhaps, then, you will accept this instead." One of the Zarkai's 4 hands extended, holding what looked like a small, glowing tablet. Lee hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take it. As soon as her fingers touched the device, it came to life, projecting a holographic message that only she could see. Leah's eyes widened as she read the floating text. Her hands began to tremble, and for the first time since the Zarkai had arrived, she felt her composure slip. This can't be real," she whispered. "I assure you, Captain, it is very real," the Zarkai general replied. "What you see is but a fraction of the knowledge we possess, knowledge that we are prepared to share with humanity, but only if we can trust that you will be true allies, not merely subordinates or conquerors in waiting." Leah looked up from the tablet, her mind reeling. The message had contained information about threats to Earth that she'd never even imagined. Threats that made the petty squabbles between nations seem like child's play. But it had also shown her glimpses of wonders beyond her wildest dreams. Technologies that could end scarcity, cure diseases, and unlock the secrets of the universe itself. You could have shared this from the beginning," Leah said, her voice hoarse. "Why didn't you?" The Zarkai's mental voice took on a tone of gentle reproach. "Would you have believed us, Captain Chen? Or would you have assumed we were trying to manipulate you? We needed to see the true face of humanity, not just its polite diplomatic mask." Leah swallowed hard, her mind racing. She thought about all the sci-fi stories she'd read growing up, tales of humanity standing tall among the stars. But those stories had always cast aliens as either enemies to be defeated or primitive cultures to be uplifted. The reality standing before her was so much more complex, so much more challenging to her preconceptions. With a deep breath, Leah made her decision. She straightened her back, squared her shoulders, and met the Zarkai general's gaze once more. "I won't bow," she said firmly, "but I will extend my hand in friendship, as equals, if that's acceptable to you." For a moment, the Zarkai was still. Then, slowly, it extended one of its hands. Leah reached out and clasped it, marveling at the strange texture of its skin and the strength she could feel beneath its delicate-looking exterior. "Well met, Captain Leah Chen," the Zarkai said, its mental voice warm with what might have been approval. "I believe this may be the beginning of a most interesting partnership." As Leah shook hands with the alien, she couldn't help but feel that she was standing at the threshold of a new era for humanity. An era that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. But as she looked into the Zarkai's compound eyes, she also felt a surge of pride. Humanity might be taking its first steps into a larger galaxy, but they were doing so on their own 2 feet, not on their knees. The real work, Leah knew, was just beginning. But for the first time, since the Zarkai ships had appeared in Earth's skies, she felt a glimmer of true hope for the future. Journey to the unknown. 3 months after the historic first contact, Captain Leah Chen found herself aboard the Zarkai vessel, Stellar Seeker, hurtling through space at speeds she once thought impossible. The ship's sleek, organic design still fascinated her, its corridors seeming to shift and adapt to the needs of its crew, both alien and human. Leah stood on the observation deck, watching stars streak by in dizzying patterns. Her reflection in the transparent alloy showed a woman changed by recent events. Her posture was as straight as ever, but there was a new light in her eyes, a mix of wonder and determination. "Still adjusting to faster-than-light travel, Captain Chen." The mental voice of Xerix, her Zarkai counterpart, echoed in her mind. Leah turned to face the alien. Over the past months, she'd grown accustomed to the Zarkai's towering form and shimmering scales. Xerix's compound eyes regarded her with what she'd come to recognize as friendly curiosity. "I don't think I'll ever get used to it," Lee admitted. "A part of me still can't believe we're really out here, exploring the galaxy." Xerix's scales rippled in a pattern Leah had learned meant amusement. "Your species adapts quickly. It's one of the traits we find most intriguing about humans." Before Leah could respond, an alarm chimed softly through the ship. Both human and Zarkai straightened, their casual demeanor replaced by professional focus. "We're approaching the coordinates," Xerix said, leading the way to the bridge. As they entered the command center, a holographic display sprang to life, showing a massive structure floating in the void of space. It was like nothing Leah had ever seen. A sprawling complex of interconnected spheres and cylinders, easily the size of a small moon. "By all the stars," Leah breathed, her eyes wide. "What is it?" The Zarkai captain, a venerable being named Vexler, turned all 4 of its eyes toward them. "That, Captain Chen, is why we requested your presence on this mission." "We don't know." Leah blinked in surprise. In the months since first contact, she'd grown accustomed to the Zarkai, having answers for almost everything. Their knowledge and technology were centuries ahead of humanity's. To hear them admit ignorance was unsettling. "Our long-range scans detected this structure 3 standard cycles ago," Vexlor continued. "It matches no known designs in our database, which spans thousands of years and hundreds of species." Leah studied the hologram intently. Despite its enormous size, the structure seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, making it nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. "It's not natural, that's for sure. But who could build something like this? And why?" "Those are the questions we hope to answer," Xerix said. "We've detected no signs of current habitation or active energy signatures. It appears to be dormant." Leah felt a chill run down her spine. "So we're planning a first contact scenario, with no idea who or what we might encounter." Vexler's mental voice carried a tone of grim amusement. Precisely why we wanted a human perspective, Captain Chen. Your species has a unique approach to the unknown. As the stellar seeker drew closer to the mysterious structure, Li helped coordinate the joint human-Zarkai exploration team. Her military training kicked in, focusing on logistics and potential risks. But beneath her professional exterior, a part of her marveled at the situation. Here she was, millions of light years from Earth, preparing to set foot on an alien megastructure alongside beings she once thought existed only in science fiction. The exploration suits were a marvel of Zarkai technology, adapting to fit both human and alien physiologies. As Leah checked her team's equipment one last time, she caught sight of her reflection in a polished bulkhead. The determined set of her jaw reminded her of all the reasons she joined the United Earth Force: to push boundaries, to explore, to represent the best of humanity. Remember, she addressed her team, a mix of humans and Zarkai. We're making history today. Stay alert, stay together, and remember your training. We don't know what we'll find in there, but I know we're ready for it. The airlock cycled, and Leah took her first step onto the alien structure. The surface beneath her feet seemed to absorb the sound of her footsteps, creating an eerie silence broken only by the calm chatter in her helmet. Gravity is Earth normal, one of the human scientists reported, surprise evident in his voice. How is that possible? Artificial gravity manipulation, a Zarkai researcher responded. But the technology is unfamiliar, more advanced than our own. Leah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as they moved deeper into the structure. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, branching off in impossible geometries that made her head spin if she tried to map them mentally. Captain Chen. Xyrix's mental voice cut through her thoughts. I believe we found something. Leah hurried to join her Zarkai counterpart, who stood before a massive door covered in intricate swirling patterns. As she approached, the patterns began to glow faintly. It's reacting to our presence, Xyrix observed, but I cannot decipher the mechanism or language. Leah studied the door, her mind racing. There was something about the patterns, something almost familiar. Wait, she said, an idea forming. These patterns, they're not just decorative. They're mathematical sequences. She pointed to a series of spirals. Look, this is the Fibonacci sequence. And here, these could be prime numbers. It's not a language. It's a test, Xyrix finished, its mental voice tinged with admiration. A puzzle to be solved. Working together, human intuition and Zarkai computational power unraveled the complex mathematical riddle. With a low hum that vibrated through their suits, the massive door began to open. Beyond lay a vast chamber, filled with technology beyond anything Leah had ever imagined. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, showing star maps and diagrams of unimaginable complexity. This is incredible, one of the human scientists breathed. It's like a galactic library. But as the team spread out to examine the marvels around them, Leah noticed something that made her blood run cold. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and floating above it was a hologram that needed no translation. A countdown timer, ticking steadily downward. Xyrix, Leah called, her voice tense. I think we might have a problem. As the Zarkai joined her, the implications of their discovery began to sink in. This wasn't just an abandoned alien library. It was a warning, and possibly the key to a threat that could reshape the galaxy itself. Leah met Xyrix's compound eyes, seeing her own mix of fear and determination reflected there. Whatever they had stumbled upon, whatever cosmic clock was now ticking down, she knew one thing for certain. The real challenge was only just beginning. And as the countdown continued its relentless march, Leah Chen, representative of humanity among the stars, steeled herself for the trials ahead. The universe, it seemed, had much larger plans for both her species and the Zarkai than anyone could have imagined. The awakening menace. The eerie glow of the countdown timer cast long shadows across the faces of the exploration team. Captain Leah Chen felt the weight of countless lives, human and Zarkai alike, settling onto her shoulders as she stared at the relentlessly ticking hologram. Any luck deciphering it? Leah asked, her voice tight with tension. Zerix's mental voice resonated with a mix of frustration and awe. The technology is beyond anything we've encountered. It's as if we're children trying to understand quantum mechanics. Leah nodded grimly. Despite their advanced technology, the Zarkai seemed just as bewildered by the ancient alien structure as the humans. It was a humbling reminder of how much remained unknown in the vast expanse of the universe. "Sir," one of the human scientists called out, excitement breaking through the tension. "I think I've found something." Leah and Zerix hurried over to where the scientist, Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, was frantically gesturing at a holographic display. The screen showed a series of complex equations and diagrams that made Leah's head spin. "It's a map," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her eyes shining with the thrill of discovery. "But not just of space, of time and dimensions. If I'm reading this correctly, it's showing the structure of, well, everything." Zerix's scales shimmered with intense concentration as it studied the display. "Fascinating. It appears to be a model of the multiverse itself." As they watched, the holographic model began to shift and warp. Streams of energy flowed between different points, creating a complex web of interconnected realities. But there was something wrong. A dark void that seemed to be spreading, consuming entire sections of the multiverse. "What is that?" Leah asked, a chill running down her spine. Before anyone could answer, the entire structure shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the countdown timer suddenly accelerated, numbers blurring as they raced toward zero. "We've triggered something." Zyrix's mental voice was sharp with urgency. "Everyone, back to the ship." But as they turned to flee, massive doors slammed shut, sealing them inside the chamber. The air grew thick with an electric charge, and Leah felt her hair standing on end even inside her suit. "Zerix," she shouted over the cacophony of alarms, "can you interface with the system? Shut it down." The Zarkai's 4 arms were a blur of motion as it worked furiously at a control panel. "It's resisting my attempts. The security protocols are like nothing I've—" Zerix's words cut off as a bolt of energy arced from the central pedestal, striking the alien square in the chest. Zerix collapsed, scales flickering erratically. "No," Leah cried, rushing to her fallen comrade's side. The rest of the team scattered, seeking cover as more energy bolts lashed out seemingly at random. As Leah checked Zerix's vital signs, her mind raced. This wasn't just some ancient defense system. It was alive, aware, and it viewed them as a threat. But why? What had they awakened? A deafening crack split the air, and a rift opened in the center of the chamber. Through it, Leah caught glimpses of other realities, worlds burning, civilizations crumbling, entire galaxies being devoured by that same dark void they'd seen in the hologram. In that moment of horror and awe, a realization struck Leah like a physical blow. The structure wasn't just a library or an observatory. It was a fortress, a last line of defense against something that threatened not just their universe, but all of reality. And they had just woken it up. "Everyone, listen up," Leah shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to work together to shut this thing down. It's not trying to kill us. It's trying to protect itself." As if in response to her words, the energy attacks became more focused, herding the team towards specific consoles around the room. "It wants us to do something," Dr. Rodriguez called out, her hands hovering over a complex array of symbols. But what? Leah's mind raced, piecing together everything they'd learned. The mathematical puzzles, the multiversal map, the countdown. It all pointed to a single, terrifying conclusion. "It's a key," she breathed, the realization hitting her like a thunderbolt. "This whole structure, it's a key to lock away that thing we saw." and it needs us to turn it. Understanding dawned on the faces of her team, human and Zarkai alike. Without further prompting, they sprang into action, each taking a position at a different console. Leah dragged the still unconscious Zurix to the central pedestal, praying that her hunch was correct. As she placed the Zarkai's hand on the control surface, the alien's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. "The void," Zurix spoke, its mental voice resonating with ancient power. "It comes. We must seal the breach." Working in perfect synchronization, the team began to input complex sequences into their consoles. Leah felt as if her hands were moving of their own accord, guided by some vast intelligence that flowed through the structure. The rift in reality began to shrink, the visions of destruction fading. But as it closed, Leah saw something that made her blood run cold, a tendril of absolute darkness, reaching out towards their universe. With a final, Herculean effort, Leah slammed her hand down on the central control. A pulse of energy exploded outward, and for a moment, she thought she could see the very fabric of space-time bending around them. Then, silence. The alarms ceased, the energy discharges faded, and the oppressive sense of dread that had filled the chamber dissipated. Leah looked around, seeing relief and bewilderment on the faces of her team. Is it over?" someone asked hesitantly. Before Leah could respond, the holographic displays came to life once more. But instead of the countdown or the multiversal map, they now showed a single, simple message in a language that somehow everyone could understand. "The seal is restored, but the void grows stronger. Prepare." As the weight of those words settled over the team, Leah helped Zurix to its feet. The Zarkai's eyes had returned to normal, but there was a new depth to them, a hint of the vast knowledge they had briefly touched. "Captain Chen," Zurix said, its mental voice filled with a mix of awe and trepidation, "I believe we have stumbled upon something far greater than either of our species could have imagined." Leah nodded grimly. "And something tells me our job is far from over." As they made their way back to the Stellar Seeker, Leah's mind whirled with the implications of what they had discovered. They had prevented a catastrophe. For now. But the warning was clear. A threat beyond imagination loomed on the horizon, and both humanity and the Zarkai would need to prepare. The journey back to Earth would be tense, filled with debriefings and strategy sessions. But as Leah looked out at the star-filled expanse of space, she felt a fierce determination growing within her. Whatever this void was, whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that together, humans and Zarkai would face them head-on. The universe had thrown down the gauntlet, and Captain Leah Chen, along with her unlikely allies, was ready to pick it up. Battle against the void. The war room aboard the UEF flagship Defiant hummed with tension. Holograms flickered, displaying star charts and tactical readouts as officers from a dozen species argued strategy. At the center of it all stood Captain Leah Chen, her face etched with the weight of command. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the alien megastructure. 6 months of frantic preparation for a threat most of the galaxy still couldn't comprehend. The void, as they had come to call it, was no longer a distant nightmare. It was here, consuming entire star systems at the edge of known space. "The Arcturian defense line has fallen," a gruff voice announced. Admiral Kowalski, Leah's former superior, looked years older than when she'd last seen him. "We've lost contact with the entire sector." A ripple of dismay passed through the assembled officers. The Arcturians had been, one of the most technologically advanced species in the Alliance. If they couldn't hold the line, "We can't keep fighting a defensive war," Leah said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of despair. "We need to take the fight to the void itself." Zurix, standing tall beside her, nodded in agreement. The Zarkai scales shimmered with a pattern that Leah had come to recognize as grim determination. "Captain Chen is correct. Our analysts believe they've pinpointed the source of the void's incursion into our reality." With a wave of its hand, Zurix brought up a new hologram. It showed a roiling mass of darkness, shot through with veins of sickly purple energy. At its heart pulsed a singularity of impossible blackness. The Nexus, Zerix explained. The point where the void first breached the walls between dimensions. If we conceal it, we might be able to halt the void's advance. Admiral Kowalski scowled. And how exactly do you propose we do that? Every ship we've sent anywhere near that thing has been torn apart. Leah took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been dreading. The plan she and Zerix had spent sleepless nights perfecting. We used the key. A hush fell over the war room. Everyone present knew what she meant. The ancient alien technology they'd discovered months ago. The same technology that had nearly killed them all. You can't be serious, one of the alien officers protested. That device is barely understood, let alone controlled. It could destroy us all. It's our only chance, Leah countered, her voice firm. We've learned more about it in the past 6 months than we thought possible. With the combined knowledge of all our species, we can make it work. She turned to face the hologram of the void, her eyes hard. We take a small team in on the Stellar Seeker. Its adaptive hull should be able to withstand the void's energy long enough for us to reach the Nexus. Once there, we deploy the key and seal the breach. The room erupted into argument. Voices raised in protest and support. But Leah's attention was drawn to a quiet figure at the back of the room. Dr. Emilio Rodriguez, the scientist who had first deciphered the alien maps. There's something you're not telling them, isn't there? Dr. Rodriguez asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Leah met her gaze steadily. The key requires a living mind to operate it. Whoever activates it won't be coming back. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened in understanding. Before she could respond, Admiral Kowalski's voice cut through the din. Enough, he bellowed. As much as I hate to admit it, Captain Chen's plan is the only one we've got with a chance of success. I'm authorizing the mission. As the room cleared out, officers hurrying to make preparations, Leah felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to find Zerix looking at her with all 4 of its eyes. You intend to be the one to activate the key, the Zarke said. It wasn't a question. Leah nodded, a sad smile tugging at her lips. It has to be me, Zerix. I started this. I need to finish it. Zerix's mental voice was heavy with emotion. Then I will be by your side until the end, my friend. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparations. The Stellar Seeker was outfitted with every piece of advanced technology the Alliance could muster. Leah handpicked her team, a mix of the brightest minds and bravest souls from a dozen worlds. As they prepared to depart, Admiral Kowalski approached Leah one last time. I always knew you were destined for great things, Shen, he said gruffly. I just never imagined this. Leah saluted her old mentor. Thank you, sir, for everything. The journey to the edge of the void was tense. Leah spent most of it in quiet conversation with her crew, learning about their hopes, their fears, the worlds they were fighting to save. She etched every detail into her memory, determined to carry the spirit of this unlikely alliance with her to the very end. As they approached the Nexus, alarms blared. The void's energy lashed out, battering the Stellar Seeker's shields. Hull integrity at 60% and falling, the Zarkai navigator reported, its mental voice strained. Push through. Leah ordered. We only need to get close enough to deploy the key. The ship shuddered and groaned, systems failing one by one. But inch by agonizing inch, they drew closer to the heart of darkness. We're in position, Zerix announced. It's now or never, Captain. Leah nodded, her face set with determination. Prepare to deploy the key. I'm going out there. Before anyone could protest, she was moving. The airlock cycled, and Leah found herself floating in the void, protected only by her suit and sheer force of will. The key, a complex device of alien metal and pulsing energy, floated before her. As Leah reached out to grasp it, she felt the weight of history pressing down upon her. In this moment, she carried the hopes of not just humanity, but of all sentient life in the galaxy. "Goodbye, Xerix," she whispered. "Take care of them for me." With a final, determined push, Leah activated the key. Energy surged through her body, indescribable pain mingling with a sense of infinite possibility. She saw the multiverse laid out before her, countless realities spinning in an eternal dance. And there, at the center of it all, the void, a cancer in the fabric of existence, hungry and relentless. With the last of her strength, Leah thrust the key into the heart of the nexus. Reality itself seemed to scream, twisting and warping around her. In her final moments of consciousness, Captain Leah Chen, representative of humanity among the stars, saw the void begin to recede. The breach was closing, sealing shut the wound in the universe. As darkness claimed her, Leah allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won. The light of a billion galaxies shone on, unaware of the sacrifice made to preserve them. A new era dawns. The observation deck of the Defiant was silent, a solemn atmosphere permeating the air as beings from a dozen different worlds stood united in grief and awe. Through the massive viewport, they watched as the last tendrils of the void dissipated, leaving behind a canvas of stars unmarred by the cosmic horror that had threatened to consume all of existence. Admiral Kowalski stood at the forefront, his weathered face a mask of complex emotions. Beside him, Xerix's scales shimmered with a pattern that conveyed both sorrow and hope, a dichotomy that seemed to reflect the mood of everyone present. "She did it," Kowalski murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Chen actually did it." Xerix's mental voice resonated with a depth of feeling that transcended species barriers. Captain Leah Chen gave everything to save not just her own kind, but all of us. Her sacrifice will not be forgotten. As if in response to Xerix's words, a brilliant flash of light erupted from where the nexus had been. For a moment, panic rippled through the assembled crowd. Had the void somehow survived? But as quickly as it had appeared, the light coalesced into a shimmering, nebula-like structure that pulsed with vibrant colors. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, who had been monitoring the sensors, gasped in astonishment. It's stable. The readings suggest it's a bridge, a permanent connection between realities. A gateway, Xerix mused, its compound eyes fixed on the ethereal spectacle. Perhaps Captain Chen's final gift to us all. In the days that followed, as news of the victory spread across the galaxy, the full impact of what had transpired began to sink in. The alliance that had formed to face the void didn't dissolve as many had expected. Instead, it grew stronger, with more species reaching out to join what was now being called the Galactic Concordat. On Earth, celebrations mingled with memorials. Captain Leah Chen was hailed as humanity's greatest hero, her story told and retold in every corner of the planet. But it wasn't just humans who honored her memory. On countless worlds, beings of all shapes and sizes paid tribute to the woman who had stood at the edge of oblivion and pushed back the darkness. 3 months after the battle, a grand ceremony was held at the newly constructed Unity Plaza in Geneva. Representatives from every member species of the Concordat gathered to unveil a monument, a towering holographic sculpture that depicted Leah Chen standing tall, the key held high above her head. At its base, an inscription in 100 languages read, "In memory of Captain Leah Chen, and all those who gave their lives to preserve the light of consciousness across the multiverse." As the cheers of the crowd faded, Admiral Kowalski found himself approached by a young cadet, her eyes shining with determination. "Sir," she said, saluting crisply, I want to volunteer for the first expedition through the gateway. I want to continue Captain Chen's work." Kowalski studied the young woman, seeing in her the same fire that had burned in Leah's eyes. "What's your name, cadet?" "Zhang, sir. Maya Zhang." A small smile tugged at Kowalski's lips. "Well, Cadet Zhang, I think Captain Chen would approve. Report to the Stellar Seeker at 800 tomorrow." Xerix is leading the mission, and I have a feeling they could use someone with your spirit." As Maya hurried off, barely containing her excitement, Kowalski turned back to the monument. The holographic Leah seemed to look down at him, her expression both challenging and reassuring. "You always did have a knack for bringing people together, Chen," he murmured. "Even now, you're pushing us forward." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. The threat of the void had shown countless species that they were stronger together than apart. Old rivalries were set aside, replaced by a shared commitment to exploration, scientific advancement, and mutual protection. The gateway that Leah's sacrifice had created became a symbol of this new era. Expedition teams, composed of the brightest minds from dozens of worlds, ventured through it, discovering wonders beyond imagination. They found parallel Earths where history had taken different turns, alien civilizations that defied conventional understanding of life, and cosmic phenomena that challenged the very foundations of science. But with these discoveries came new challenges. Other realities had their own versions of the void, their own existential threats. The galactic Concordat found itself serving as a bulwark against horrors from beyond the veil of reality, standing guard not just for their own universe, but for countless others. 5 years to the day after the Battle of the Nexus, Xerix stood before the newly inaugurated Multiversal Council. Its scales shimmered with a pattern of solemn determination as it addressed representatives from 100 realities. "We gather here today," Xerix began, its mental voice resonating through the Grand Chamber, "to honor the legacy of one who showed us that the truest strength lies not in technology or military might, but in the willingness to stand together in the face of the unknown. Captain Leah Chen taught us that the diversity we once feared could be our greatest asset." The Zarke paused, its compound eyes scanning the assembled delegates. "As we stand on the brink of a new age of exploration and discovery, let us remember her example. Let us move forward not in fear of what lies beyond, but with the courage to face it together." As Xerix spoke, a shimmer of energy passed through the gateway visible from the council chamber's windows. A new expedition team, led by Commander Maya Zhang, embarked on their journey into the unknown. On her uniform, Zhang wore a small pin, a replica of the key that Leah had used to seal the void. In that moment, as delegates from across the multiverse applauded Xerix's words and the expedition ship vanished into the gateway's light, the spirit of Leah Chen lived on. Her sacrifice had not just saved a universe. It had opened the door to endless possibilities, ushering in an era of unity, discovery, and hope that spanned realities. The stars beckoned, brighter than ever before, and humanity, along with its myriad allies, stood ready to answer their call. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the most powerful force in any universe: the unbreakable bonds of friendship and shared purpose that Leah Chen had forged in the crucible of crisis. As the stellar seeker Io disappeared into the gateway, carrying the dreams and aspirations of countless beings, a new chapter in the grand cosmic story began. And somewhere, beyond the veil of mortal perception, Captain Leah Chen smiled, knowing that her legacy would live on in every act of courage, every moment of discovery, and every hand extended in friendship across the vast expanse of the multiverse.